welcome to your Get That Nugget for GCSE Maths. Today we will be concentrating on giving you a framework to answer grade 3 style two-way table questions. It's all about two-way tables. Please note, this session is to complement your lessons with your teachers. It is not to replace them in any way. So without further ado, let's have a little look at some of the two-way table style questions that we're likely to get. So, bit of space. I'm going to keep the distance between the camera here and this question because sometimes questions can be quite nice for two-way tables in that there's a table already drawn and it's just a case of, can we fill in the missing information? Now, what I do want to draw your attention to, because sometimes they're not drawn, but all a two-way table is there's some information across this side horizontally and there's some information vertically, two different pieces of information that we can then draw from the table. But there's always a total column and we've got a total over here. So we always want to make sure when we're constructing a two-way table that we have a total on the other side and we essentially have our total for everybody involved. Okay, so that's what we're going to use eventually when we get on to some of the later examples that require us to actually construct a table. Now, all you got to look at is what information can I fill in? Well, start where you feel confident. Now, I know that there's 8 boys that use the bus and 7 girls that use the bus. So in total, that one has to be 15. And this is all the question wants me to do. It's getting familiar with what do I need in terms of information for a two-way table. Like this example says I've got 10 cars for boys and I know there are 16 altogether. So what do I add to 10 to get 16? Well, that has to be 6. And then as you fill in more of the spaces, the rest of the question becomes nice and straightforward. So my total here, well, I know there's 42 in total and I've got 24 boys. So 42 subtract the 24 would give me 18. So that's what's going to go into that column, into that space, apologies. What about along here? Well, 10, remember this is the total for this horizontal line. So the total number of boys is 24. 10 plus 8 is 18. What do I add to 18 to get 24? Well, then that has to be 6. And then having filled out the 6, I can see that the number of people who cycle is going to be 6 plus 5, which gives me a total of 11. And it's always worth just checking. 16 plus 15 is 31. When you add 11, you get a total of 42. So all of those columns and rows should add up to the corresponding total. So it's really important you include that when you do a two-way table. So there's a nice example, normally a couple of marks for that question. In terms of how can a question be made a little bit more tricky? Well, it's when you don't have the two-way table constructed for you. So this is a classic example. So I've got 170 students in year 8. The students have chosen Spanish, French or German. 82 students are boys, 33 of the students study French, 19 of the 41 students who study Spanish are boys, 56 girls study German, complete a two-way table. So thrown right in at the deep end here. There's no table for me to use. I have to construct it myself. So I know my total. I'm looking at year 8 and I can see I'm looking at Spanish, French and German. And the other piece of information I'm told in the question is whether they're boys or they're girls. So they are the two pieces of information I have. I know that they either do Spanish, and I'm not going to do perfect boxes because for a lot of these questions, it will be in a plain A4 space in the exam, French or German. I always tend to write it in the order they've given it in the question. Now, like the previous example, I said we always want to make sure that we have got a total on this side as well. So Spanish, French, German, and then a total, and we know we're looking at boys or we're looking at girls. So down here, I've got boys. Just want to make sure I stay in view. And then I've got girls here. And again, like the first example, really important that we have a total. Okay, now we can use a ruler for these just to make the question a little bit nicer in terms of splitting the table up. So what I'm going to do is just a line down here. I'm just going to do a line down there. And we can see that it just makes the question a little bit tidier. It's not perfect in terms of I haven't got a set number of squares for each grid. But what I have got is, I'm just going to do one here because that's frustrating if I don't. I can clearly see that I've got my grid. So it breaks the question up nice and easily. I'm not worried about the number of squares. So it's the information I've got. Right. It's about putting the information in the right place first. I know there are 170 students in year 8. That means there are 170 students altogether. And I always tick the question. I don't put a line through it in case I put it in the wrong place. I need to go back. So 82 students are boys. I know the number of boys in total has got to be 82. Now, my advice here is you almost naturally want to then fill this one in. Don't fill any information in that you're not told in the question. Always do the question first, and then you can work out any missing values. Right. 33 of the students study French. I know in total there are 33 that study French. So I can tick this one off. 19 of the 41 students who study Spanish are boys. So 19 of the 41 who study Spanish, so Spanish, of those, I know 19 are boys. So I can tick off the 19. And I also know the number of students who study Spanish, which is 41, which means the total for Spanish has to be 41. I'm then told 56 girls study German. German, girls, corresponding box has got to be this one. I have now used all of the information in the question. There's nothing else I can do. I can't put any boxes in. So from there, we should get into a position where we can start to answer the question. I can see this is probably a nice box to start with. 19 boys, but there's 41 altogether. So what must go in here? Well, 19 plus 22 is going to give me 41. So I'm happy with this column. This one at the moment, I'm not too sure about. It's got 2 spaces, and this one I've also got 2 spaces, but we can go in here. I've got 82 boys and I want 170 altogether. So I need to think about what do I add to 82 to get to 70? Well, that's going to be 88. 80 plus 80 is 160 plus my 10. Now we can start to see, right, there's a few spaces forming where I can start to fill in these values. What we've got is I know that 22, 56 plus this box has a total of 88. So 22 plus 56, that to me makes 78. What do I add to 78 to get 88? Well, that has to be 10. I can then look at this column because I know the total of this column should be 33. What do I add to 10 to get 33? Well, that is going to be 23. Then we can fill these in either order. It doesn't really matter where we want to fill these ones in. So I know this box here is worth 170. 41 plus 33. Well, that's 74. So what do I add to 74 to get to 170? Well, that's going to be 96, which makes this number actually quite nice because what do I add to 56 to get 96? Well, that is going to be 40. And then we can have a quick check. So 19 plus 23, that's 42, plus 40, that's 82. I've filled in all of the missing values. Happy with my calculations. They all add up. They all correspond to the totals. Brilliant. We're happy with that question. So that's a two-way table. Now, they don't really get much more difficult than that. You may well get some questions from that, which I've added in this one, for example, but we'll have a look at one more, and that pretty much sums up how the two-way tables work. So we're looking at families that booked holiday in July or in August. They either went to France, Spain, or Portugal. So very similar to the last one. The last one was about which lessons they study. This is about holiday. So we've got France. You can use abbreviations if you want to, so F, S, and P, but I'm just going to write them out because I want to make sure that we're happy. And then I know they're the three options for the holiday, but then don't forget, it's really important for a two-way table to put total. And we know the other option we're looking at in terms of the piece of information, or whether they went in July or August. So down here, we've got July, we've got August, and then we also know we need a total. So once you start to do sort of one or two of these, you can see the common theme is that don't forget your total. Look at the question. What's the information that you have? What are the two pieces of information you need? Do you need a perfect grid? Definitely not. You just need a grid that you're going to be able to fill in without having too much or plenty of space for you to put your numbers in. So, like there, it's not amazing, but I'm just going to finish it off so it's nice and tidy for me. And then we finish the question. How many families were there all together? 100. So we can do this one a little bit speedier. Now we're more confident. They either went to France, Spain, and Portugal. Lovely. 59 families booked a holiday in August. August, how many altogether? 59. Again, temptation to fill this in, but we're going to leave it till we've got all the info we need from the question. 19 of the 35 families going to France went in July. So France, I know 19 went in July because it's telling me. And I know that 35 families, 19 of the 35 families going to France. So 35 families went to France, which is what goes in here. How many families booked Portugal? 30. So Portugal, total is 30. We can tick that one off. And then 20 families booked Spain in August. Spain, August, must be that box. That's my 20. I've ticked off every number. Remember, don't put a line through it just in case we put one of those values in incorrectly when we come to check. Now I can fill in all the information. I'm going to start here because I've got 19. I want a total of 35. 35 take away 19. Or what do I add to 19 to get 35? That's going to be 16. I'm then going to go across my total column, my total row here. 35 plus 30 is 65. What do I add to 65 to get 100? Hopefully 35, 70, 30, 100. And then I naturally want to now do this one because what do I add to 20 to get 35? Well, that is going to be 15. Can't do that one just yet because I don't have enough information. But this total, well, that has to add up to 100. What do I add to 59 to get 100? Well, that is going to be 41. We can now fill in these using the rows. So 16 plus 20 is 36. What do I add to 36 to get 59? Well, that's going to be 23. And again, if you're not sure in terms of your arithmetic in your head, you can always do a little bit of subtraction, addition in underneath the table just to make sure you're happy with your values. And what do I add to 23 to get 30? Well, that's 7. And just to make sure that is 7, 19 plus 15 is 34. 34 plus 7 is 41. So I've created my two-way table and it says how many families booked to go to Portugal in July. Well, Portugal in July is that one. You tend to find it's one of the last values you need. So you just need to make sure you highlight in your table or very clearly state that that's going to be 7. And that's how we do two-way tables. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Again, your table doesn't need to be a work of art, just nice and clear, plenty of space so it's clear where your numbers come from and that you can read the numbers. In terms of examples for these to have a look at, I'll leave them on the screen for a little bit. I'm going to zoom out. So the first question we've got for you, in fact, I can probably leave that as it is on the screen. So first two, pretty standard, just filling in the tables. Example 3, you need to create the frequency tree, not frequency tree. That definitely shouldn't say that. That should say two-way table. That's another option that you can use, but a two-way table for that one. Just be careful on example 2. It wants what fraction a year 10 students who prefers maths. So it's not just the total, you want it out of however many people you've got. So just make sure you're reading the question for those. Yeah, have a go.